Hi, I'm Rachel. I am the owner of Apricity Event Co. based in New York City and in France. And you're listening to the Loverly podcast.
Well, I always like to start when I meet someone new. Tell me, what's your star sign, Rachel?
I'm a Sagittarius. December baby. Although I'm not super versed in the star signs, so I always get positive response when I say
I love Sagittarius. You guys are kind of more go with the flow. There's very whimsy. It is kind of, I would say, not compatible, but as a planner and a designer, it goes more into the design than it goes into the planning. Because I always see Virgos are very much on the nose, planners, detail oriented, and Sag is more whimsical, creative, free flowing, which maybe that makes sense because you're also a designer.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think a lot of us that are planners and designers, our minds work both ways. And I think I have to go so full speed into one or the other when I'm diving into design. I just finished a deck last night and it is I can't think about or do anything else. I can't get up from it. Once I'm in it, and it might take me even a month or two later than when I should have presented it to the client. But once I'm in it, I'm like, this is great. I'm in this. But the rest of the time, my mind is so planning based that I do so well with the logistics side of things. So I have to really compartmentalize. I can't just jump from one to the other, within a 30-minute period of time.
So Apricity Events, you're based here in New York, but also you have an office in Europe.
Correct.
And you do high-end luxury weddings. How would you describe kind of your aesthetic and your style?
I mean, I think the best way to describe it, New York, we get so many avenues. I mean, you have the Upper East Side wedding, you have the Hamptons, the Hudson Valley, the Brooklyn Warehouse. I think people can get a little bit lost here in terms of what that kind of through line looks like. And I think by having the European side of the business has always kind of just held true to us, because I think with Europe, it is this really, it's effortless. It looks effortless, but it's really a lot of effort. It's kind of this beautiful approach to an approachable style luxury. And so I try to pull that through and find that through line in the States as much as possible, just to make sure that we're really consistent in that way. So yeah, I would say the aesthetic is really that approachable luxury.
And you're a designer and a planner, which is a hot topic. A lot of couples, when they're hiring a planner, they expect a designer. And sometimes when they hire a designer, they expect a planner. And you are both. So talk to me about how you manage that. I mean, you mentioned it a little bit earlier, but the difference between a planner and a designer, and when you're getting both, what does that look like?
Yeah, so traditionally I've always been both full on, where I am giving my couples really curated design guidance, but always outsourcing every vendor. So I'd say kind of the difference between that is some planners that are also designers, they include florals in their design where their team builds the florals on site. They are a full design house.
Or they do the installations themselves.
Right, exactly. And I've never had a floral team in-house. So everything I do, I curate the concept for my couples, but then we're outsourcing florals, we're outsourcing lighting, rentals, all that kind of stuff. I'd say up until the last year or two, the company has, in such a good way, grown to a place where it's listen, it's in my mind to source really beautiful rentals to guide on flowers. But if we're getting to a place where there's custom market umbrellas with a unique fabric that's also showing through in your custom cut linen on the table, and we're custom printing the facade of your bar, and all of those kinds of elements that are really just not offered in a rental studio. I have 3 weddings this year where we are outsourcing to a full design house, where it's they're doing the flowers, they're bringing in the custom bars, they're bringing in everything. And I like both. I don't know. It just depends on the scope, I think, is kind of the short answer there.
I think that's the key. The scope is ultimately what drives cost and the vendor dynamic and relationship. And it's such a hot topic because couples, when they're planning a wedding for the first time, they have no idea what goes into planning the event, and they don't realize that design is different than logistics and execution. And sometimes they expect, when they hear wedding planner, for someone to do both. And they think about designer, they expect that the logistics will be executed as well. And so I just think that's a really important like hot tip, that if you're hiring a planner, you're not necessarily getting design.
Exactly. Yeah. And I try to kind of educate in my pitch when I'm first speaking with a couple, just what is a planner and designer, what I offer in comparison, so that they
and everyone's
know what they're
different.
signing
Everyone
up
offers
for.
something different. So it's like there's always has to be that kind of education when you're talking to a new client.
Exactly. How could they know?
Yeah,
It's
impossible.
so much that they only hear once they get started with this process. So I certainly sympathize as they're kind of trying to figure it all out.
I heard you mention custom linens, custom bar. These are obviously luxury weddings. Your weddings that you're doing, I imagine, are mid 7 figures.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mid-
Here and there.
Okay.
Yeah.
These are not $80,000 weddings. These are multiple
Correct.
hundreds of thousands of dollar weddings. What is like the biggest budget you've worked on?
I mean, we tend to still range shy of $1 million. The million.
You say that so casually.
I know. Well, it's not my. It's
a house.
not my budget. It's not my same budget. But it truly is. I mean, I've kind of heard this said very well recently. Is, you know, I think that the content that's out there in the world for weddings, it easily makes people feel like, oh, I need to have this $1 million wedding. But I think, you know, to tread carefully, it just, depending on how you live your life, like if I don't take a private jet every time I go on like a vacation and stay, you know, a week at the 5-star resort, you know, for $300,000, why am I implementing some of those things into the wedding day? And so $1 million wedding is absolutely astronomical, but it's a luxury. It's not a necessity. So it kind of just, you know, we're kind of just working with people who celebrate that way. And I think it's amazing, but it's, you know, the line has become blurred because I think everyone feels like they have to celebrate that way. And I think
And they see the photos and they want to grab a piece of, oh, I want to have that type of floral. They don't realize that floral budget is $150,000 to execute in that way at that scale with 300 people.
Yeah, exactly. There's a company called Nancy Narking on Instagram. I don't know if you follow them, but they're kind of like doing this really cool thing where people, it's a little hard because people aren't submitting photos tagged to them often just for confidentiality, but planners are able to like anonymously submit a post-wedding budget.
We showcase wedding budgets on Loverly, and people get so angry in the comments. These are submitted by brides and planners. We actually use the real photos behind the content, so you can kind of get a glimpse of it. We disclose location, guest count, budget, and break down everything they spend. And it's really interesting because some vendors get angry when they're like, you only spent $700 on the cake, or if the bride decided not to spend for a professional hair and makeup team, they're like, everyone gets angry. And the reality is
context is missing sometimes, and people don't know what that wedding was and why.
That's not feasible. You're setting unrealistic expectations. But the reality is you can have any type of wedding in any budget, in any location, right? You can do it. They will look different and they will feel different, but we see it all the time. People get like really triggered in the comments when we show a real budget. We spent too much on this. They didn't spend enough on that. How come you didn't mention this? And it's submitted by real couples and planners.
Yeah, it's interesting too because there's a flip side to it that's happening. People always ask me if I would ever like jump into the TikTok world, and I am terrified. I love scrolling TikTok. I like to watch the content. But I find that there is a huge gap on TikTok specifically of couples understanding what things cost in comparison to real wedding costs. And like there was a photographer on there that just got like torn apart for charging $8,000. And I'm like, I don't even know any photographers that charge that low. Like that's an amazing
Well, we're
rate.
in New York City, so it's a completely different market.
Totally.
But no, it is true. I think it's almost like rage content.
Yes.
Where on TikTok, the content that goes viral when it comes to wedding planning content is kind of the shock and awe. Like, I got a proposal for $80,000 and it didn't include anything.
Yeah.
Right? They're sharing things in order to incite rage and get people in the comments to engage with them, because unfortunately that's what feeds the algorithm and that engagement helps. But I agree, there is a disconnect between what it costs in real life and reality. And that's part of the reason why we do this podcast, is to have real conversations for people to understand, like, hey, $1 million budgeted wedding actually goes a lot faster than you would think, right? You think $1 million, which is the cost of a house in a lot of really nice places, not in New York City. You can't even get an apartment probably for $1 million. But people think it's going to be a certain way, and those budgets go really quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even just even in the last 5 to 10 years of thinking much smaller than that. I mean, there were a lot of weddings that I would get inquiries for that were kind of like still totally doable around New York City at, $80,000, $100,000. And I feel like that is now the new 150 to 200. It's just
the costs have really gone up.
The costs have gone up in all categories, and I think it's it's tough, and I get it. Like, I think everyone across all industries feels this. Like, my husband's like, my pay rise doesn't match what our apartment rent is. That kind of stuff. It's just always, people are always feeling that financial frustration, and I think the wedding world is just no different. Because I think your vendors are all trying to pay their bills, and it's just it's a big cycle of the economy.
No, for sure. You also do weddings in Europe. So how does, call it a $500,000 wedding here compare to that same budget in Europe?
It goes a lot further. I mean, a lot of our European couples are certainly looking to celebrate multi-day. So I think that kind of helps play into the fact that they're able to kind of work with a few more events within a weekend to kind of work within their budget. I mean, there is something to be said about some of the costs falling back onto your guests in that sense, because they're traveling a lot further, they're booking their accommodations, and the couple ends up, I find a lot of our weddings over there are more intimate as well. So the
smaller guest count
kind of drop off a little bit once you're traveling internationally. Almost all of our European weddings are American couples, and a lot of them are New York City couples. So they enjoy that we kind of have boots on the ground in both locations, and sort of able to accommodate the time zone. And my partner over there, she's French, she speaks the language. It's really nice to kind of have someone that's really versed in the region. But yeah, the budget certainly looks a little bit different.
So do you think the expectation when you're hosting a destination wedding in Europe, the expectation is to provide multiple events and entertain your guests while they're overseas?
Yeah, it is. And I think even more so than the expectation, but just, I mean, it's not like it's fun to have a full weekend where you get to really experience more than just, arrive at 6 p.m., leave at midnight kind of a celebration as you might in New York City. I mean, we even see that if we have an event upstate or in the Hamptons, even though it's not even a flight away, people feel excited to invite guests for multiple.
It's like a mini vacation. You're getting away for a few nights. You want to make it special and memorable and elongate the experience.
And so much happens in the in-between. For the couple, sometimes their least favorite, not that their least favorite part, because they obviously enjoy the wedding itself, but some of those times when you're kind of cruising around the property, you're having breakfast and your cousin stops by, or, whatever it is that you're kind of experiencing this weekend with other people, they get more of those stress-free moments in the in-between with their guests, which I think is special too.
So you've been doing this for what? How many years now? 10 years now. What do you find is still surprising to couples when they start planning?
I mean, I think that just every time I speak with a couple on an inquiry call, I just feel for them because they're having so many big conversations at one time. Just where in the world are we doing this? What's our budget? What does our guest list look like? And I think I just always try to reassure them that the whole process doesn't feel this way. It's truly, and I think I think they're pleasantly surprised usually to hear that, oh, wow, this is just a lot happening at once. And I think kind of resting assured that it's still a lot of work, don't get me wrong, but it starts to settle a little bit where it's not just all of these major conversations.
So it's mostly the shock of, holy shit, there's so many decisions to make really quickly, and that overwhelm, but that it's only temporary. It fades once you kind of make a couple of those big decisions.
Yeah.
You obviously are doing luxury weddings. How would you define what a luxury wedding is? Like, what goes into it that makes it feel premium?
Yeah, I think that the biggest thing is the guest experience. And I know that sounds obvious, but truly I've heard this so many times, is like, there's not enough design that you can put in to fix a bad experience wedding. Like, no matter how beautiful it is, if the guests, like if it just wasn't planned well and the hospitality wasn't good, the food and beverage, the guests are sitting outside in the snow, whatever it is, the beautiful overflowing flowers on the tabletop can't fix that. And I think that when it comes to luxury, I think that so much of that experience in person is so valuable. I think from the planning side, for me, a second thing that really speaks to luxury is being able to anticipate someone's needs before they know that they need that. Is so valuable.
So like a cocktail or a refreshing beverage upon arrival.
Yes. And sometimes it's a thankless aspect of the process, because if we're, putting out fires or making a decision or removing something that we know the couple will see and they don't like, or, whatever it is,
the client doesn't need to know about it. You kind of make it go away before it even becomes an issue.
Right. Exactly. And I think that is, and it's almost like that feeling of when you're outside on a perfect sunny and 70-degree day and it's like not too hot, not too cold. You just don't think about the weather because you're not feeling anything. That's just the goal, I think, of like,
versus being hot or cold.
I don't feel, I'm just content and I don't know why. And I think that's the luxury.
That makes sense. So not hungry, not cold, not bored.
We didn't know that we would know if there was a line at the bar, but I went to go get a drink and I didn't think about the fact that there wasn't one, but I thought about that and I made sure that there wasn't one for you.
And that's luxury.
Yes.
Period. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I think the guest experience is really important, and that is something that isn't captured always in the Instagram and the TikTok posts, right? Because you can design for social or you can design for a photo shoot and that looks aesthetic and gorgeous, but you don't know, was the food like not enough or disgusting or cold? Was the weather, was the temperature control not great? Was it really hot and sticky out, right? You're right. Those are things that people don't think about until it becomes a problem.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, we're planning this for the couple and we want the couple to have everything that they want. But at the end of the day, we could do that beautifully if we went to City Hall and still end with the result of you being married. And I think the joy of having the bigger celebration and bringing the guests into it means that we need to take care of the guests and make sure that it's a good experience for them as well.
I love that. You do a lot of weddings in Europe, a lot of destinations. What are you excited about from a destination perspective? Like, what are your favorite destinations for events?
Yeah, I mean, so I have a business partner, Beryl, and she lives in Bordeaux. So she really plans all of our European weddings. We are always just, the grass is truly greener. She loves New York City and I love France. And we both kind of just really enjoy that. I mean, year to year, I would say in New York, I probably get maybe 50% of my weddings are at new venues that I haven't personally worked at yet.
Oh, wow. Lots of New York venues popping up?
Well, not even new venues, but just new to me. You know, there are just, multiple places to get married and there are some that are brand new, but for her in Europe, just, I hate to put an actual percentage on it, without actually knowing, but I would say much higher than my percentage. She is at new venues almost all the time. So in that sense, I mean, she lives in Bordeaux, so anywhere around France. And she has a big heart for Italy. So planning Italian weddings is something that we always like to put on the radar. So I don't know. We certainly kind of
are there certain
so
regions
lucky.
in France that you find either guests really love or couples are gravitating towards?
Yeah, I mean, I think a big one on our radar is the south of France. I mean, it's just so beautiful. I actually was just there last week in Cannes, and it's just amazing as well. So, I mean, I think that's kind of the biggest thing is prioritizing areas that still have wonderful hospitality already existing in the region is great. I mean, guests being able to hop on a flight with either direct or one connection. I mean, you don't want guests taking like
Multiple
multiple
flights.
connections,
Yeah.
train, whatever the case may be.
Going back to that experience,
Yeah.
even the travel to the destination needs to be considered.
Exactly. When it starts to become so remote, I think everyone starts thinking like maybe just take that as like your honeymoon or a trip, the two of you, but getting that many people to somewhere is just, it's just too difficult.
So for these destination weddings, what are couples prioritizing when it comes to like their wedding experience?
Yeah, I mean, I think it kind of dates back with destination specifically to that full weekend scope. I mean, it's just part of the benefit of hosting somewhere else is so that you really get to see everyone from start to finish for the
So
weekend.
they're prioritizing a multi-day event to make sure that they can design an experience over the weekend.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
And what kind of mistakes are you seeing these couples make? What do you think is the most common mistake that couples make when they're planning, especially a destination?
I mean, I think the biggest thing is to really do your research on the region and its kind of peak time of year. Of course, peak always means that it costs a little bit more, but being able to make sure that you're hitting the nicer weather and actually getting to enjoy the region for what it is super important.
So don't have a wedding during hurricane season.
Correct.
In a location. But I think in Europe, especially in France, you kind of have good weather for a broader period of time.
Mm-hmm.
I guess when it comes to New York City, do you see a lot of couples getting married in the winter? Because I think there could be something beautiful with a cold, snowy winter wedding in New York City.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, I do see an uptick of kind of the January, February, March wedding in New York, the restaurant wedding. This is actually a really fun fact, but in 2017, this law was lifted, which is so bizarre. It dates back to the Prohibition, where you legally weren't allowed to dance in a restaurant. And it's actually kind of crazy and bizarre that it was only lifted in 2017. And I remember this, and I don't know how much it was really enforced. Like we'd all been to like a club.
I'm pretty sure I've been dancing in club restaurants in my early 20s in New York City.
Yeah. But it did kind of lead to this uptick, I guess, that people didn't really think too much about of the restaurant wedding. And then I think some of that came from COVID and more intimate guest counts and leaning into the off season. But yeah, just a little fun fact that since 2017, we've seen uptick in restaurant weddings. I don't know if it's only because of that, but as a contributing factor.
I think in New York City, because there's, like you said earlier, there's so many different types of wedding vibes you can create. There is a quintessential New York City restaurant vibe that is for a certain type of person. If you're a big foodie and you want to have that kind of like food first experience or a more intimate guest count. Mm-hmm. But New York as a destination itself offers like such a wide variety of styles and types of weddings. Like I know you've done Hudson Valley, you mentioned Hamptons, Brooklyn warehouses. Do you ever get bored of New York as a cityscape as a landscape for your weddings? It's almost impossible, I feel like.
It is impossible. Yeah, I mean, I still love it. I think also there's a beauty in New York of the the venue that exists for more than just a wedding. And I think that can shine through in restaurants, in museums, whatever the case may be. And I think that's a huge trend that's kind of happening right now is getting married at a spot that doesn't serve a purpose of being a wedding venue. Of course, it comes heavier logistics, sometimes heavier costs, especially if it's a museum and you're bringing everything in. But I think New York is really beautiful in that way, that we have so many incredible spaces that, if you kind of use your imagination, and even if it doesn't exist, as if you just Google New York City wedding venues, being able to kind of blur that line a little bit is really fun.
Your business and your weddings that you've produced have been featured in a number of publications. I always get asked by vendors, like, how do we get featured? What can I do to stand out? You've obviously been featured in a number of different placements and different publishers. Is that normally driven by the clients wanting to get featured? Are you pitching that? Talk me through kind of that kind of like promotion of weddings. Because for some brides right now, it's like they'll hire a vendor just for the placement.
Yeah. It's the hot topic at the moment. I think publications are ever changing, just as the wedding industry is. And traditionally, it was a mix. Sometimes our brides would submit themselves. Sometimes our photographers would submit, which I think was used to be more common. I think there are so many talented, but so many photographers at the moment that I think that the publications are, I don't know who they're responding to the most.
I think we get overwhelmed. I will say it from my experience and our editors teams, we have so much inbound that comes in that it's really hard to sift through. It ends up being relationship based of, I've worked with them before, I know them, or we've seen their work, or another vendor we've worked with, follows them on social or tags them, because it is kind of like drinking from a fire hose as a publication. Like, we just get so many submissions.
Yeah, absolutely. I worked for a period of 6 months last year with a company called Masterfully Managed. And she kind of did a little stint for us of like just kind of refreshing, submitting our weddings from that year prior, just kind of solidifying some of our connections in the wedding industry. And I really enjoyed that experience. She's really wonderful and does help with a lot of that. But yeah, I mean, I think it's just kind of an ever, and I've heard a lot about this recently too, is finding multiple avenues and kind of diversifying how your business is showing up online. So, keeping up with your social media, podcasts, other avenues that isn't always just the wedding day feature, I think is really important. And yeah, I mean, it's kind of a wild ride, because we have some couples who are like, don't post my wedding. I don't want any of, I want the privacy, and we value that. And then some that are ready to roll. So we also are, of course, reading the client and understanding what they want as well.
Last question for you. What is the number one way that you find couples are finding you, discovering you, and reaching out to you?
Word of mouth, which is the irony of all of this. That's
what I was asking, because it's not social, it's not the publication, maybe it's not even a Google search.
Yeah, and and this is just how I operate in my life anyway, but it is truly word of mouth for the most part, and it comes from just anywhere. And I think that's why it's so important to just, a lot of times I'm not staying in my lane, but I'm focused on doing the best that I can on a wedding day for that couple, being kind and thoughtful to all of our vendors that are on site. Are you eating? Are you okay? Like, did I send you the timeline in advance? Do you know where you need to be at what time? Just making sure that on the ground, when people leave our weddings, they had a good experience working with us. Because I think, there are times where someone's like, oh, I was the backup singer for this one band that you worked with 7 years ago, whatever. We had a great experience, and then they recommend me to someone. And I think that, like, no one is too big or too small on a wedding day to be an advocate for your business. And so making sure that you are, being genuine and treating people well and just being genuinely good at your job, then I think it just shines through over time.
Basically, what I like to call a no asshole policy.
Yes, correct.
Try to be as kind as you can to everyone on the day, because you never know who is going to be your next referral, or who
Correct.
knows a bride or a groom that's getting married.
And in a genuine way, of course. But yeah, I mean, it's just, it's important to treat people fairly.
This has been the Loverly Wedding Podcast. We are hosted by Kellee Khalil, produced by Natasha Barkman, Kayla Fitzgerald, and Jennifer Alvarado. Watch the podcast on YouTube by subscribing to our channel, and you can follow and listen to us on Spotify, iTunes, and every major RSS feed.